Our usual tendency is to see knowledge or even action knowledge or practice as a process or in terms of a process of increasing formalization, as if the books are stacked up one over the other and it's getting better and better as we move from the non-modern, not pre-modern, non-modern, from the non-modern to the modern, and even from the non-West to the West. And it looks like in this step ladder of the increasing formalization of knowledge, the uppermost is the Western, the uppermost is the modern, and the rest is that repository, homogenized albeit, into underdevelopment, backwardness, a space and a time that is non-modern and non-West. Which also makes Europe the center, the quilting point, the anchor point, and Atlantic, the axis along which we organize our thinking and our worldviews and our life worlds. When we aboriginalize, when we render the process aboriginal with a hyphen, what we do is that we first provincialize Europe. As Dipesh Chakravarti has helped us see and understand. When we provincialize Europe, we not just constrict Europe to its experience, to its archive of experience, to its algorithm, to its paradigm, to its explanation of its experience, to its heuristic, to its own GPS, to a limited GPS of history. We also get to see that Europe is a heterogeneous, the West is a heterogeneous, disaggregated, and decentered pathway. Not one, but multiple. There is an originary multiplicity in what we consider to be the West or Europe, or the two shores of the Atlantic. What we see over here is that there are many, many chords, many, many angles, multiplicity of perspectives, worldviews, philosophies, practices. Of these, one or a combination of one and a few more have become the dominant or the hegemonic. And then there are minor chords. There are major chords, or maybe one major chord, marked by modern binarisms. And there are minor chords and minor chords and minor chords and minor chords within minor chords, contradictions within minor chords and among minor chords. One such minor chord would be Freud, another such minor chord would be Marx. When we look at world and experience and thought through the perspective of the aboriginal with the hyphen, what we what we see is that the original understanding of Europe requires also an appreciation of the minor chords, an appreciation of the ab-original, that which is different, that which is other to what has presented itself to us as the original form of Europe. So there are ab-original moments in Europe. Marx and Freud are such ab-original moments. And these ab-original moments are important for us. We don't want to give up on these ab-original moments. One cannot not use these ab-original moments to make sense of our experience. In other words, we do not give up on these ab-original moments. What happens when we come to the non-West, say to India? What we see over here is that once again, India or the non-West is not one. There are minor chords as well over here, and there are multiple chords over here, not one chord. In other words, there is an originary multiplicity. Even in India, like Europe, like the West, like the two shores of the Atlantic, there are multiple moments. There is an originary multiplicity of perspectives over here, and there are minor chords over here as well. One way to look at India is then to be appreciative of such minor chords. Gandhi, Tagore, Shekhar Bose, the medieval Sahajya movement in the eastern part of India. These are then a few minor chords, and there are many more. However, when we come to India, we do not see just the Indian major chord. There's, of course, an Indian major chord, but the Indian major chord is not the only major chord over here. Through colonialism, through continuing colonialism, the hegemonic major chord of the West and the hegemonic major chord of India, sometimes informed by each other, have generated a cocktail major chord in India. So in India, we have a cocktailed major chord comprising of the Western major chord and the Indian major chord in conversation, in dialogue, sometimes in contradiction. And there are minor chords and minor chords and minor chords and minor chords within minor chords, small twigs within small twigs, smaller twigs within branches, branches within trees. And here, I think the metaphor of the banyan tree becomes very, very important. There is no one tree. There is an originary multiplicity of trees, an originary multiplicity of prop roots, and originary multiplicity of stems and roots. And the metaphor of the banyan becomes very, very important to problematize a philosophy of the one with a capital O, and to move to a philosophy of the multiple. Not a philosophy of diversity, but a philosophy of multiplicity, originary multiplicity. We begin with multiplicity. We do not start with one and then splinter it into multiples or many. No, we begin with multiplicity. So There are minor chords and minor chords and minor chords within minor chords, contradictions among minor chords. And that is what could be called the known West or the East or the global South, or in this case, India. What happens when these two come to conversation, come to conflict, come to contradiction? The aboriginal or the aboriginal perspective actually wants to bring the minor chords to conversation. It doesn't want to give up on the aboriginal, the hyphenated aboriginal moment in the West. It also doesn't want to give up on the aboriginal, again, the hyphenated one, the aboriginal moments in the East or in the non-West, or in this case, India. So one tries to bring the ab-original with the hyphen and the ab-original with the hyphen in India to dialogue with the aboriginal with the hyphen in the West. The Bose-Freud correspondence, the Gandhi-Marx correspondence on socialism, the Tagore-Freud correspondence, the Tagore-Einstein correspondence, the S.N. Bose-Einstein correspondence are examples of minor chords in conversation from the West and the non-West. Where is aboriginalization then? Aboriginalization is when Gandhi, in this correspondence, in this dialogue, offers to Marx a philosophy and a practice of a non-violent socialism, which was unthinkable in the Western Marxian tradition, which he offers to Marx as an aboriginalization of Marx, as rendering Marx aboriginal. He offers to Marx a way to rethink socialism, to rethink the revolution. He also offers to Marx poor woman socialism, socialism when there is no overproduction, socialism not of plenty, but socialism of the constriction of needs, socialism in the context of constriction of needs in a planetary context, with a planetary worldview, in the context of climate change, climate crisis. Socialism when there is a mitigation, a constriction of human needs, human desires. Girindra Shekhar Bose does the same. He offers to Freud a post-Oedipal or an Oedipal idea of human subjectivity, human experience, human development, human sexuation, how humans become sexuated subjects. He offers to Freud an understanding of sexuality and sexuation that is not informed by the 18th century idea of men and women being opposite sexes. He sees men and women as neighboring sexes, as a Mobius, and that is a very different way to conceptualize psychoanalysis, practice psychoanalysis. So in that sense, both Gandhi and Bose, by way of simple illustrations, actually, aboriginalize Marx and aboriginalize Freud. So the two processes go side by side. On the one hand, finding, excavating archaeologically, finding genealogically, deconstructively the ab-original moments, the ab-original minor chords in West and non-West, modern and non-modern, and then aboriginalizing with insights, worldviews, philosophies, practices, culled out again, archaeologically, deconstructively, genealogically from the non-West, from the non-modern, and producing fundamental torsions, architectonic transformations, fundamental transformations in the way socialism or psychoanalysis or Marxism or psychoanalysis has hitherto been theorized, taught by the West. So aboriginalization gives to the West a new theory of Marxism or a new theory of psychoanalysis and a new practice of socialism or communism and a new practice of psychoanalytic healing. And it doesn't give to the West only a logic of the uh, Indian psyche, but gives to the West an Indian logic of the psyche. It doesn't give to the West a logic of Indian sexuality or three essays on a theory of Indian sexuality. It also gives the West three essays on an Indian theory of sexuality, which would be relevant to the West also. It doesn't give to the West a theory of socialism in India. It gives to the West an Indian theory of socialism, an Indian theory of Marxism, an Indian theory of capitalism. It gives to the West an Indian capital, not just capital in India. It gives to the West uh, a theory of capitalism, and socialism or communism from India, not just what it is in India, but it is from India, or psychoanalysis from India, an outline of psychoanalysis from India. It is not an outline of, not merely an outline of psychoanalysis in India, but an outline of psychoanalysis from India, or an Indian outline of psychoanalysis, and an Indian outline of Marxism, so that what is offered to the West is not merely Indian case histories, but what is offered to the West is a theory, is a theory that could enrich even the West. And that is aboriginalization without the hyphen. Whereas the earlier one is finding the aboriginal with the hyphen in both West and non-West, modern and non-modern. But to transform, displace, reorient um, the Western theory, Marxism, psychoanalysis. Say, for example, these two are taken just as illustrations, Marx and Freud, to with philosophies, insights, worldviews, concepts, conceptual frameworks, paradigms from the non-West and the non-modern, is to aboriginalize. Aboriginal with the hyphen and aboriginalization without the hyphen form a Mobius. It works like the Mobius strip, like a seesaw, as Girindra Shekhar Bose had suggested, without a stable midpoint, without a stable inside-outside, without a stable a priori, a posteriori. It works like a Mobius, and as one works one's way through the aboriginal with a hyphen, one reaches aboriginalization. And as one works one's way through aboriginalization, one reaches the aboriginal with the hyphen. And they form a Mobius, or a seesaw without a stable midpoint. without a stable resolution. And the metaphor of the Mobius hence becomes very important when we think the aboriginal and aboriginalization in a mutual constitutivity, in overdetermination.